What's up, guys? I'm Matt Reisinger, and this is where you go, and I'm Steve Basic.
Hey, buddy, I'm Steve Basic.
What's up, guys? I'm Matt Reisinger.
And I'm Steve Basic.
And we are talking European windows today. Here's one that we're about to install on the Steve Basic job. And these are a little different. So in the build show today, we're going to talk to you about why these are different than standard American windows and how to install them. There's a couple different ways to install these. Today's build show all about European versus American windows. Let's get going. All right, Steve, European windows. Here's a small one, although you have a giant opening for a much larger window coming for this hole. Talk to me about what makes these different from the standard American windows.
So a couple things about the windows from Europe. First of all, they're made to order. So there is no standard size, there is no custom window, there is just the window package.
Got it.
Right? So the beauty of that is that you can kind of design, if I want a window that's 4'3"1/8", they just make it. There's no upcharge to, move out of some production arena to a custom arena.
Gotcha.
So you got that. Most of the windows there are triple glazed. You can get these in a double glazed option, but the reduction in cost is
minimal.
Just so little. And the beauty of the cost is that I tell clients, frames are expensive, glass is cheap. So you want to make the biggest possible window you can for that space. So if we took this opening here, that's say 6 foot,
yeah,
right? We could do that traditionally with a domestic window where maybe we bank 3 of them together. But then your glass goes down, your frame ratio goes up. In a European window, I can just do this all as one package, and it's a cheaper window by probably 20% than if I did 3 windows.
Where you mold 3 together.
Where I mold 3 together. And you can see these are beefy frames, so you want to stay away from, mulling those together.
That's legit. And this is an aluminum product you're using on this project, but we've also used UPVC.
Yep.
Our friends at European Architectural Supply sell both. And why is this aluminum frame different than what we might have seen with American aluminum windows?
Well, this is a fully thermally broken. If we were able to cut a section through here, we'd realize there's an outer frame and an inner frame that is connected by a thermally broken material here. So there is no thermal transfer. This isn't aluminum in the middle.
It's a little hard to tell, but this is some type of composite material.
Right.
Aluminum here, tink, 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 tink. Thud, thud.
Thud, exactly.
Got it.
And so because of that, we get really thermally efficient frames for an aluminum frame.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not as good as the PVC. They're probably not as good as the wood, but they're better than if this was just all through aluminum.
Yeah.
The other beauty is by having the outer piece and inner piece, we can choose to have this one black on the side, and we could do this any color on the inside.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and there is no upcharge. You pay for a color, it's okay, we're doing a colored extrusion, so whatever colors you want, you're paying for the color, not the fact that it's black here and blue here or whatever.
Makes sense.
So you have that.
So it's a pretty bomber window, but I'd tell you, Steve, as an American builder, this part right here, it scares me. This isn't the traditional flange window that I just prep the opening and put it in until the flange hits the sheathing.
So
right?
I will say this, and it's probably, I think it's 100% across the board. And you've installed it, so it'd be interesting to get your opinion too on these. But I have never met a builder that hasn't said these were the easiest windows ever to install once you got beyond the weight of the window.
Yeah.
Because they are heavy, triple pane glass, and the beauty is this is all Saint-Gobain glass, and I have some windows that are 16 feet wide, 6 foot tall in houses.
Dang.
So Saint-Gobain isn't afraid. I've been to their factory, so they get their glass
Big openings.
in. It's 33 feet wide by something like
Holy
12
cow.
or 13 feet tall.
Dang.
These big pieces of glass, so they can make really big windows, which is beneficial when you have beautiful views like we have here.
No doubt.
But yeah, once you get beyond the weight, the beauty of this is try and rack this.
Yeah, it's not gonna rack.
You're not racking it. You're not taking it out of square. Nothing. This is true, and it's going to remain true. And they have these special turbo screws that you can use that even though you drive them, the screw stops before it has any intention of drawing the frame in towards the rough opening.
Gotcha. And then this is going to be a clip install on this particular window. that you're going to angle the clip in, and then it's going to make a screw location for you on the inside of the window, which means that also then we can set this window anywhere we want in the depth of the opening, right?
Yeah, so you've heard the terms, there's innies, there's outies, there's middies. If you look at, like if we did a therm model on the window installation, it would suggest that the window be in the middle third of the wall. Middle of the wall in the third, thermally, not dimensionally.
Okay.
So, because some people say, well, you got insulation on the outside. Yeah, so it's the thermal third of the window in the middle. But you can push them to the outside, you can push them to the inside, and a lot of that is climate dependent. So here, I'm not so worried about pushing them out. In this case here, we're going to push them all the way out and have them flush with our siding, so that our rain screen, so that our casing bridges from the rain screen to the window. Now, if you're in New England or say Minnesota and you have a 12-inch double wall assembly and you put these, if you put them out that far, what you're at the risk of is creating a microclimate inside the window opening, where the glass, when it's here, is going to be at one temperature, but if I move the glass out here in Minnesota, it's going to be at a different temperature, because it's just getting less heat from the room and from the register to throw it on there.
Gotcha. So in this case, we're putting this window all the way forward.
This will be a full outie.
And then talk to me about barrier method versus water managed method, and maybe you could define those terms for us too.
Yeah, so first of all, a water or a barrier install is treating the window like a dam. It stops the water from getting in, and there is no hope in the water migrating across that barrier, right? So it's 100% reliant on total exclusion. And the problem with that is that if you do that and water does get in, now you have water on the wrong side of the dam with no way to get out. So that exclusion method, you have to weigh it against some other things that we're going to talk about. Now, a water management system is, if water gets in, I give it a path to get out. So it's more of a risk-friendly.
And if I could dumb that down to my level to say, when I installed Windows 10, 15 years ago, we kind of only did barrier method. In fact, when I was working at a production builder, we'd take a flanged vinyl window, we'd use silicone caulk on all four sides, and we used Tyvek tape on all four sides of that flange, and we were making what you mentioned, a dam so that water couldn't get past. The problem was those were cheap vinyl windows from American companies that were the bottom of the price barrel, and some of those windows would leak, especially at the corners, and now I have water trapped back there with no easy way out. What's the difference between that window and this window?
Well, this window here has its own water management system built in, right? So should water get into the window, you can see down here, we have the cover on that one. I pulled the cover off of here, but it has weeps. So it's a triple gasketed system when this is closed. And between the second gasket and the outer third gasket, it has the ability for water to go out.
So in other words, if water gets between the glass and the frame somehow, whether it's here or at a corner, it's got an ability to pop out of there.
It all falls out there. And what's interesting is I took this off, and it's like the Europeans, even in the detail of their weeps, they have a little diverter
like a little
in there.
Shed roof right there that's shedding the water
and
correctly.
These things just simply pop in.
That's pretty cool.
To then protect the window. So the window unit itself is a fully water managed system.
I like it. So let's then switch gears to this actual house, this actual install. You're the architect on this house. You designed the house with this window in mind, knowing you're going to use that. And this is a pretty iconic Texas style, I would say, which is a ranch style, meaning it's a one-story house. We don't have two stories. We've got a nice, what is this, 18-inch?
About an 18, I think it's more like 20 inches.
Okay, so just shy of a 2-foot overhang. And you notice from the head of this window to the overhang, I mean, that's basically acting as
it's almost level.
A giant head flashing. It's almost level here. So you've got a lot of forgiveness in any window in any install that's happening here, right?
Yeah, so because of that, your risk significantly lowers, right? And as a builder, I mean, any builder out there, the whole thing you're doing when you build a house is you're questioning what is my risk in doing this task or that task, right? Because you only get sued when your risk fails.
Yeah.
So here we have that security of knowing we have these big overhangs and all these windows. And even if you can pan over there, you'll notice the window there, that head actually goes up from here. So the window height changes, but the relationship of window head to soffit remains all around the house. So when the roof goes up or the plate height goes up in that section of the house, so do the windows.
It's really smart.
So we maintain this. And I always tell people, you know, I call it the X and Y. And that the Y wants to be, you know, probably at least half of X and not much more than that. When you start getting much more than that, then you start getting into this higher risk area. And you see some houses, they have 6-inch overhang and the window's down 2 feet.
I mean, I always love going back to the umbrella example. I've used this a million times, but if you've got a giant golf umbrella on, it doesn't matter what kind of raincoat you have on. You could have a 1910 trench coat on. You're not getting wet. Take that umbrella off and just put a baseball hat on, and all of a sudden you better have the best Patagonia jacket they make. And I think what you're saying is let's be smart with the architecture, put a big overhang on.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes the architecture does call for, okay, maybe we minimize the overhangs or somewhere, but all that does is it heightens your risk, and you might go from a barrier install to a heavily water managed install.
Yep.
Right? Because your risk is that much higher.
Let's cut here to another opening that you've prepped already, and let's talk about the actual install on this window. All right, Steve, talk me through the window opening prep here.
So we have, you know, our typical rough opening, nothing changes there. Here we have zip R6.
Okay.
We actually we're using a wooden furring strip for rain screen here.
Okay, so you got some hardy plank siding going on.
That's going to go on.
1x2 will be our furring.
1x2 is our furring there. Now, this here is the 1x3. It's usually a back dam, and that's why I drew the detail. But interesting enough, the homeowner, when we came the other day, she was asking about if we could change that detail and actually move this. It was a midi.
Ah, so you were going to set it mid-window, and then this would have been what the window sat on.
That sat on to create a back dam, and we would have had a little slope sill in front of it.
Got it.
But now we don't have that slope sill, but
Okay.
we have that dimension that includes that 3/4 of an inch.
Yep.
So we still have to put it in.
Okay.
So we put the 3/4 inch, we hold it flush to here, not flush to here, because we want any water to drain to be able to go into the rain screen. So you can see we put wooden shims on here. That's to level out the window, but also to give us a little bit of a airspace under here so that water can then go into that system. But rather than penetrate that with a nail or screw, we just use a small piece of zip tape to hold it in place. Once the window sits down on it, the gravity will then hold it into place. Right? So we're using zip stretch tape. I left this one off, but you can see here, you know, it goes, and I typically turn it up the edge about 4 inches. And then what we'll have is we'll just have zip, regular straight flash, come down
6-inch
and
zip
overlap
tape over
that.
here.
Yeah.
And that'll cover up your foam. Any water that migrates back there is not going to touch any wood.
We're trying to basically cover this piece of OSB and the foam. And the other thing to understand is, you know, when you have a field of the wall, we have our weather resistant barrier, we have our primary air barrier. The minute we cut a hole in it, we put a window in that is synonymous with what's happening here, but now we have that space.
Right.
So we have to fill in that space with a control layer that controls weather and air.
Got it.
So that 6 inches is going to fold in. We're going to install the window. Now, instead of coming from all the way here to the window, we just have to bridge that little 1/2-inch gap between the zip
Gotcha.
and the window.
Yeah, and it's best practice in my mind to always take that, whatever you're using on that sill, take that same water and air control layer, bring that into your jamb and do that on all 4 sides.
And
That's
so
definitely
basically
the way
we're
to
just
go.
taking this and folding it
Yep.
to the inside and installing the window against it.
And then where will the window sit when it's all done? Will the window sit flush with the outside of this 2x2?
The window face
Or
is
1x2?
going to sit flush with the outside of our rain screen here, because the plan is we'll have another rain screen that'll sit in here about an inch space, and that one will catch the end of the siding. This one will catch the casing that bridges the rough opening to the window.
Gotcha. Now, let's pause here and let's grab that sample window so you can show me how the actual clip system works. Here's the clips that we're going to use to secure the window in place. These are going to go on the inside of the window because they're going to go inside the building. And we're going to run them roughly every 2 foot on center, but we want to keep them within about 6 inches of the corners. And we're going to do this on both the sides and the head and the sill. You're going to see I'm just dropping it in there, and then we're going to turn it like this. And they're nice and tight once we get it in. There we go. And you can see that's serious. Once that gets set, it's not going anywhere.
So, little tip on using the hangers here. If you leave them straight out, you're going to run into the chance that this hits the rough opening. So one of the ways to avoid that is if we fold it in, now it doesn't become a problem when we install the window. But the second part of this tip is when I fold this out, you'll see that this now has been displaced from here. And that allows, you can see it here too, right? When I bend it out, you'll see that this plane here is not in the same plane as that anymore. And so that makes up for that difference in the rough opening, so that when you screw into this, you're not bending that anymore. So we have the window in. I just wanted to reiterate, if we take that now and we fold it up, you can see now that it lays flat against that rough opening, and it makes up for the displacement of the space in the rough opening there with the metal clip.
All right, Steve, so windows in, they're going to screw these off. They've checked already for level, making sure everything's level and plumb. What's the next step on the outside?
So on the outside, because we're going to do a barrier system here because we're covered with the risk of the overhang, we're going to do a 4-sided perimeter seal, but we're going to use a permeable tape. Okay. So if water does get in there, there is at least some minimum drying potential.
Some vapor permeable tape.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And then what will you do in this gap between the window and the jamb?
In between there, we'll do just some expanding foam, and then we'll finish this with an air seal tape here also that makes a little angle. We typically bite the window about 1/4 of an inch, and then we come out in the window opening. It's interesting. You put your hand there, you can feel the wind.
That air. Yeah, the wind's coming
right through there.
And then you also, one thing I learned was make sure you tape over
We'll tape over the whole clip. Yeah. Yep. Push that basically outside. And
so besides these windows being a little heavier maybe, especially probably because that's triple glaze, other than that, they're really not that bad.
There really isn't. It's the weight. And once you get over the weight, you can't rack these. You're not pushing this window. It's not moving. I mean, yeah, it's only a clip and a screw, but it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Big kudos to you, Steve. We're in Texas at a Texas job site. This is not my job site, but the other builder you came to teach him and his crew the first time. They hadn't installed these before. You're here for the first 2 or 3 installs. Even though it's in the drawing, Steve's making sure it's going right. I highly recommend that, guys. If you're the builder watching this, the architect, come out to the job site, work with the crew on that first couple window install, and then use this as your mock-up on the job to say, all right, now do the rest of them just like this.
Yeah, exactly. Now that we have a standard that we can apply all the rest of the installations to.
And don't be afraid of these European windows. They were pretty straightforward to order and install. EAS is one of our Build Show partners. I'll put a link to those guys in the description where these happen to come from. Steve, thanks for coming out, man.
Anytime, buddy.
Guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. You know we've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Instagram or TikTok. Otherwise,
wait, hold on. On the Build Show.